Hello, my beautiful watchers. I think I might have bitten off a bit more than I can chew this time. You know that feeling you get when the more you learn about something, the more you realize you don't know shit about it? I know I usually make a habit of projecting confidence here because it helps with the job, but I thought you ought to know that I'm feeling a little out of my depth on this one. That's not going to stop me from sharing my opinion, I'm just trying to make it less of a disappointment for you if this review is shallow garbage. "1984 is the work of a Mr. Eric Arthur Blair, aka George Orwell, an English novelist." There's been quite a few Englishmen on the show recently. That's not intentional, I swear. In the very unlikely event you're not familiar with his work already, he's kind of the guy for writing about dystopias, past, present, and future. He is in fact so famous for it, much like H.P. Lovecraft, his name has become a descriptive term for them. If a society is Orwellian, shit has gone down. Though far from being his only big hits, the most instantly recognisable of his books are probably Animal Farm and 1984. Of course, there's a good chance you already know most of this because these books are often chosen for mandatory study in schools, both in Britain and the United States. Maybe elsewhere as well, I'm not sure, those are my countries. I myself had to write a hideously long essay on Animal Farm when I was a young teen. Almost flunked that class, actually. Well, look at me now, Mr. Keynes, now who's not applying himself, huh? I don't think he watches YouTube. Animal Farm is an episode for another day. Maybe. Hopefully not. It's pretty much common knowledge that it's basically a retelling of the rise of the Soviet Union and Russia, but with talking animals. 1984, published in 1949, was at the time a story about the not-so-distant future and Orwell's warning to the world to get its shit together, or everyone could very well expect to end up to their eyeballs in the crapstorms he describes in his books. Okay, let's real quick address the elephant in the room. I find myself in a rather difficult position here because I don't want to spend this entire book review pointing out the disturbingly accurate comparisons between the events of this book and modern-day real life. That would instantly date this video horribly, probably ruin the pacing, be off-subject, and quite frankly be no fun for me or I suspect you. However, I am not so cowardly that I intend to pretend that I don't see said comparisons, so perhaps the compromise is to get an acknowledgement out of the way now, then throw my all into the review. The recent bout of violation after violation of our personal privacy and information online being brought to light, and the disturbing revelation that that information is being used to manipulate us either for profit or political gain, combined with the current governments of both America and Britain constantly proving they think they can make us believe whatever reality-contradicting alternative facts they want as long as they make good sound bites with shocking levels of success in some cases, is not exactly what happens in 1984, but it would be terrifyingly fitting in amongst its pages. The world is a fucking scary place at the moment, and there might come a point soon when we all need to make a stand on a platform that isn't online. Anyways, let's get fictional and talk about this book already, shall we? Fair warning, I might be about to share an unpopular take on this, though I'm really not sure. People might praise me for saying it, proclaim it a well no shit Sherlock moment, or just lose all respect for me as a critic. Regardless, I find myself inescapably of the opinion that the plot of 1984 isn't particularly important. Or, to be more precise, it's only important because it serves as a way to explore the world it's set in. I can't say why for now because of spoiler reasons, but the lead's journey in this doesn't ultimately amount to much, and I think that's because this cautionary tale was never supposed to be, don't do what this guy did. It's overwhelmingly, please don't let the world become like it is in this book. Because of this possibly foolish belief of mine, a disproportionate amount of this review is going to be given over to describing the world of 1984, as opposed to a detailed plot synopsis. Apologies if you find that frustrating. The upside is most of this review will be reasonably spoiler safe. I'll give you a heads up if that is about to change. The actual recent history of the world in 1984 is almost impossible to confirm, as what is considered history is changed pretty much constantly to suit the needs of the government, and the only supposedly independent source of information the lead comes across is highly unlikely to be genuine. However, some of it still seems to check out with the way the world works, so there may well be a grain of truth to it. The best lies apparently work that way, so let's go over it based on that assumption. Sometime in the 1950s, World War III took the form of atomic bombs being thrown every which way. Entire cities went bye-bye all over the planet. In the resulting aftermath, the world became divided up into three superstates. Russia took over most of Europe and became known as Eurasia. North and South America joined up, presumably under the leadership of the United States, and absorbed what was left of the British Empire, forming the nation known as Oceania. Some years later, China, Japan, and most of East Asia formed their own superstate called East Asia. Well, I say it's called that. I actually rather suspect each nation has its own names for itself and the two others. Oceania probably keeps the names of its rivals so similar, so it will be easier to edit the history books every time they change who they're at war with. The remaining chunk of the world is constantly fought over by the three superstates, its unlucky population being used as slave labour by whoever is in control at the time and forced to strip mine their own land for its natural resources. Apparently, even though the three nations are perpetually at war, they never make any real effort to attack each other outside of the contested areas, aside from sending the occasional small missile towards each other's cities to kill maybe a few dozen people. This is supposedly because each is so powerful, even if the other two teamed up, they would have no realistic chance of conquering them, so they all exist in a sort of never-ending... well, not a cold war because they do fight, I guess a lukewarm war is the best way to describe it. Moving on to specifics about the nation the story is set in, Britain, now just a small part of Oceania, is rather insultingly known as Airstrip 1, though London is still London. Just before Oceania became a thing, Britain had a rather nasty civil war that resulted in a completely new socialist government taking over. Much like the real-life history of Soviet Russia and its allegory Animal Farm, the original ideals of this new government were quickly ripped to pieces while still being touted as the reason for its greatness. Indeed, the socialist part of the English Socialist Party, or INSOC, quickly became very much in name only as a fascist movement quickly took over from within, framing the original revolutionary leaders for treason and publicly executing them. They then instituted a very strict class system on the country, almost to the point of it being a caste system, with them unsurprisingly in the role of the nobility. Unless I'm misunderstanding something, and feel free to correct me if that is indeed the case, oddly enough, despite Britain being only one small part of Oceania, one that appears to have been annexed by the United States as basically a vassal kingdom, the English Socialist Party somehow became the ruling party of the entire superstate. Decades later, in the year 1984, the inescapable status quo within Oceania is as follows. The inner party are the ruling class, the 1%, and the government, living in luxury while the rest of the country slowly starves to death as the cost of constant war slowly strips everyone of their basic living needs. The outer party represent the middle class and work the menial or physical government jobs, having mostly miserable lives but at least not being in immediate danger of starvation. They are the most closely watched of the population by the party, as they routinely have access to sensitive and possibly incriminating government information, and might have just enough education to realise how royally fucked up the world is. The remaining 85% of the population are known as the proles, the lower class, basically modern-age peasants. They die by the hundreds, maybe even thousands each day through starvation, poor working and living conditions, conscription into the everlasting wars, and civilian casualties of the occasional but never-ending bombs. One of the most prevalent features of Airstrip 1 and the book itself is government surveillance. The entire population is watched constantly. If you're a member of the outer party, having a TV screen in every room of your house with a built-in camera is legally mandatory. This allows the government to shower you with propaganda while also keeping track of your every activity. While many of the proles live in houses that are too old and dilapidated to support such technology, all public areas are closely monitored 24/7. Supposedly, the members of the inner party are watched as well, with only small respites of privacy, but that can't be confirmed. Under such close scrutiny, any kind of organised rebellion against the party is effectively impossible. Even the suspicion that you might harbour ill intent towards the government would be enough to get you quietly arrested, executed, and expunged from any records that prove you ever existed. One of the most iconic parts of the book, Big Brother, the name borrowed for countless seasons of mind-numbingly boring reality TV, was the poster boy for the government. And I mean that literally. You only ever see this character on posters. He's a nameless man with a big mustache plastered on every wall of the city with the slogan, "Big Brother is watching you." A phrase that's supposed to be part threat, but also part reassurance that your big brother will watch over you and keep you safe. The other slogan or motto of the party is "War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength." The highly contradictory nature of all of those statements is another huge staple of the book. The party has stayed in power for so long because they've successfully forced the population to partake in what they call doublethink. Simplified, doublethink is the ability to genuinely believe two completely contradictory things are perfectly and equally true. The party has, through decades of propaganda and extreme punishment, managed to train almost everyone to believe everything they tell them, even if they have just said the exact opposite thing mere seconds before. There's examples of this all the way through the book, though some of the most blatant ones include when they quietly let slip that they're going to have to reduce the chocolate ration to 20 ounces one week, then announce how happy everyone is that they increased it to 20 ounces the next. More impressively, mid-pro-war rally, they change who they're claiming their mortal enemy is. Like, mid-speech, mid-sentence, they claim they're now and have always been fighting someone else entirely, and the crowd just accepts it, throwing down their banners that say, "Down with those particular guys," and wondering how they got them in the first place. Now, I know this might sound like some ridiculous sci-fi shit, but believe it or not, there is a shit ton of real science behind cognitive dissonance and how it's used to break people's will. Star Trek fans will get this reference. There are 4 lights! 4 lights! The idea that it could work on a massive scale is not insane. It has happened, possibly not quite to the level described in this book, but give a propaganda machine enough time. A thing called Newspeak features heavily in the book as well. The English language is known for constantly changing and adopting new words for things, but apparently the government of Oceania isn't so keen on that, so they're constantly editing down the dictionary and banning any words they feel are superfluous or problematic for their agenda. They've been at it for quite a while and apparently believe they'll have perfected it by the year 2050, where the human language will be boiled down to the absolute bare minimum words needed to impart information. Unlike Animal Farm, which is based on very specific real-world events, it looks like Orwell took inspiration from multiple totalitarian regimes for the villains of this book, the most prevalent being Nazi Germany, surprising no one, I would imagine. The part about blatantly lying about being a socialist party is an obvious example. Also, all of the children of Oceania are forced to be a part of a clear parody of the Hitler Youth, known as the Spies, where they're indoctrinated into fanatical loyalty to the party and taught the importance of monitoring one's friends and family for any signs of dissonance so it can be reported. Like every would-be dictatorship that has ever existed, exists, and probably ever will, there is of course a villainized boogeyman for the public's anger to be directed towards to help keep them in line. It's usually whoever Oceania is at war with at the time, but it's also a gentleman by the name of Emmanuel Goldstein. Yes, I'm sure it's no coincidence that Orwell gave the representative of a scapegoated minority a Jewish name. He wasn't always particularly subtle. Goldstein was allegedly Big Brother's partner in the even better, more life-controlling revolution that took over the original revolution, but there was a big parting of the ways and Goldstein apparently ran off into the country's underworld to start a resistance movement against the government. Clearly doctored video clips of Goldstein saying easily disprovable nasty things about the government are played for a few minutes each day during a time referred to as the Hate, a ceremony designed to work everyone up into a murderous fervour against anyone who would dare question their glorious leaders. Orwell seems to have shied away from discussing the specifics of technology too often in this book, so there's no major gaffes in his predictions as far as I can see. In fact, he was bang on the money about several military developments, predicting that long-range surface-to-surface missiles and aircraft carriers were going to become super important in the future, though he did call them rocket bombs and floating fortresses. Still bloody impressive. Very impressively, he also basically predicted webcams with the combining of monitors and cameras. That was in reality a tad later than the 80s, but still. The only thing I'm surprised he didn't pick up on is the widespread introduction of night vision technology. When the lights were off, the government couldn't spy on you anymore. I mean, I'm pretty sure infrared has been around since like the Second World War, hasn't it? As would be expected from a society that's super intense about regulating all information, ownership of unauthorized books is punishable with death, and basic literacy is unheard of in almost all of the population. The outer party is allowed to read, but preferably only Newspeak-approved words, and writing is discouraged in favour of using text-to-speak technology, another very impressive future prediction of Orwell's. Much like Ray Bradbury in Fahrenheit 451, Orwell and 1984 shows us that authors will always consider an attack on reading and writing to be the pinnacle example of a dystopian society. As an avid book lover myself, I'm not disagreeing with them, and there is plenty of historical evidence to back that up, but I can't help but think it's a little funny that they consider what they do for a living to be the thing we have to protect the most in all the world. Chastity and sexuality are recurring themes in this book as well. The party tried to repress people's sex drives as much as possible, telling them that sex should be a horribly unenjoyable act done only to produce children. This supposedly worked much more effectively on women than men, giving rise to the all-female anti-sex league. Very unfortunately, from what I can tell in the book, these women are blamed for the lack of sex in the world much more than the government that pushed it onto them. Okay, I should probably describe the plot at least a little. Spoilers starting from now, I guess. Winston Smith is a 39-year-old low-level outer party member working a job making minor amendments to records as and when instructed by his superiors. He is absolutely miserable with his life and secretly hates the government he works for. He finds relief by doing things like keeping a secret diary where he talks about his dissonant thoughts, and goes to the seedier parts of London looking for relics from before the war in shops and talking to old men in bars who remember what life was like back then. Very unexpectedly, a young attractive co-worker named Julia, who he originally took a disliking to because he assumed she might be an informer, passes him a love note and they start a secret sexual relationship in any place they believe they're not being monitored. However, it all goes wrong very, very fast for both of them, as Winston takes a chance on trusting an inner party member he believes is also anti-government and asks him to induct him into the secret resistance movement that he believes exists. Alas, his friend turns out to have been part of a government sting operation designed to root out people just like him. He's arrested and subjected to months of physical and psychological torture intended to force him to accept and adopt Doublethink as his new way of life. During this, his tormentor informs him that both Big Brother and Emmanuel Goldstein are fictitious characters created to give the public a focus for their love, a focus for their hate, and the party control over both. Winston resists as best he can, but is eventually broken and indoctrinated, forsaking his free will and even his feelings towards Julia. She is subjected to the same treatment and result. Now a good little drone, Winston is released back into the public to enjoy his love for Big Brother, while the government finalizes his inevitable execution and shoot him in his now thoroughly warped head. So yeah, a bit of a downer ending really, but I suppose it wouldn't be much of a cautionary tale if Winston suddenly became a super commando, brought down the government and restored freedom to all. Okay, let's end this review on some plot specific stuff and quick fire minor observations I made while reading. Ironically, because of the title of the book, Winston is not actually sure it even is 1984 when the story starts, because the government changes facts so much even calendars are wholly unreliable. It seems like everyone wears spectacles in this story, just like everyone. You can tell right from the first page that there's something different about this book. I mean, for starters, it's really interesting how unheroic the hero is. He's middle-aged, he's overweight, he has rather unappealing body issues. He's also not that particularly likable. He has so many issues with women, like seriously, yikes, and even worse, he basically proves that any resistance movement he would want to be a part of has the potential to not really be all that much better than the government, considering he agrees he'd be happy to help them murder or disfigure innocent children to achieve their ends. Good philosophy there, Winston. I'm sure the ends justify the means mentality is a great way to go about this. There's no chance of that backfiring down the line with a perpetual cycle of the oppressed becoming the new oppressors or anything. My point is, although you can't help but feel for him and his plight in this hell world, he is not your standard protagonist. He is far too human. And an arsehole. In conclusion, I would say that by design, this book is a bit of a hard read. Like I said before, if it wasn't all doom and gloom, it would defeat the purpose for which it was written. It's not a pleasant experience, but it is an educational one, just like Orwell presumably hoped. If everyone read this, I think it would legit raise the general awareness of how potential tyrannical governments operate and help them be more mindful of them trying to establish themselves. I can't really think of a better endorsement for a book. Thank you for joining me, my beautiful watchers. As usual, if you would be willing to show some attention to that like button, or help artificially inflate my channel statistics by leaving a comment about, say, your favourite type of cheese, I would be most grateful for the support, and I will see you soon. Hello again, my beautiful watchers. I just wanted to take this opportunity to give you a quick reminder that there's a wonderful website called Patreon that's been allowing online producers to actually make a living doing what they do, since apparently YouTube's decided that they shouldn't anymore. Basically, they offer the chance to pledge a certain amount of money per month or per video in exchange for various rewards offered by the creator. There's a variety of stuff you can earn by becoming one of my patrons, including early access to all videos and taking part in that survey you see at the start of every Lost in Adaptation episode. That's actually a very important part of the process, as I use it to gauge how much I'm going to need to explain about the book and the film before I start comparing them. If you decide to become a higher level contributor, your name will be added to the credits that you're seeing right now, and you'll be given the option to join my private chat room so you can regularly talk with me and other patrons. If you're keen enough to join the topmost tier of patronage, you'll earn the most coveted of all the rewards, the chance to pick a future adaptation to be reviewed by yours truly. However, if right now you are thinking, "My goodness, the Dom, I can't do that! The Llama King will not allow it! The Llama King sees all! The Llama King cannot be opposed! The Llama King is everything!" Fear not, it would still be a huge help to me if you were to give that like button the old clickaroo, share this episode on social media with perhaps a little recommendation to your friends to check it out, and subscribe if you've not already. It really helps my channel grow and reach new beautiful watchers. I hope you have a most pleasant